The old woman's fingers dug into Eddie's leather jacket, her whisper desperate enough to stop his heart. Pretend to be my grandson. Right now. They're coming to take me. Eddie looked past her, two men in cheap suits moving down the hallway, eyes locked on her room like predators who'd found wounded prey. He should have kept walking, should have gotten on his bike, and never looked back. Instead, he heard himself say, "I've got you, Grandma." Her grip tightened. "Thank you. Oh God, thank you." The men were 20 feet away now. Eddie stepped in front of her, every muscle in his 63-year-old body ready for a fight he had no business starting. Before you find out what happens next, hit subscribe and drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story goes. The nursing home smelled like industrial cleaner trying to cover up something dying. Eddie Callahan had pulled into the parking lot of Riverside Care Facility on accident, his Harley making a weird grinding noise. And this was the first place with shade where he could check it out without melting in the California afternoon heat. 63 years old, leather vest covered in patches that told stories he'd never speak out loud. Eddie wasn't the kind of man who ended up in places like this. Not voluntarily. He'd just gotten the bike running smooth again when his bladder reminded him he'd had 3 coffees and a Red Bull that morning. The building was right there. He'd slip in, use their restroom, slip out. Simple. Nothing was ever simple. The lobby was empty except for a young woman behind the desk, eyes glued to her phone. Eddie moved past her like smoke found the bathroom, did his business. On his way out, he took a wrong turn, ended up in a long hallway lined with doors, most of them open, revealing rooms that all looked the same. Cream-colored walls, hospital beds, people waiting to die. He was turning around when he heard it. "You." Eddie stopped. The voice came from a room on his left, barely more than a whisper, but something in it made the hair on his neck stand up. He looked through the doorway. An old woman sat in a chair by the window so small she almost disappeared into it. She was staring directly at him with eyes that didn't match the rest of her sharp, calculating, desperate. "You'll do," she said. Eddie shook his head. "Wrong guy, ma'am." "Wait." The word came out hard, not a request, a command. "Please." Something made him stop. Maybe it was the way she said it. Maybe it was because he'd heard that same tone in his own voice a lifetime ago when he was begging someone to listen and nobody would. He stepped inside the room. "I need help," the woman said. Her hands shook in her lap, but her eyes stayed steady on his. "My name is Maggie Davis. Everyone calls me Maggie, and I need you to pretend to be my grandson for the next 2 hours." Eddie blinked. "Lady, I think you've got me confused." "I don't have you confused with anyone." Maggie leaned forward, and the movement made her wince. "You're exactly the kind of man I need right now. Someone who looks like he doesn't take orders from anybody." "I don't." "Perfect." She pointed at the chair across from her. "Sit down. We don't have much time." Eddie should have walked out right then, should have gotten on his bike and never looked back. But there was something about this woman, something in the way she held herself like she was made of steel covered in tissue paper. He sat down. "Why do you need a fake grandson?" Maggie's hands twisted together. "My real grandson died 6 years ago. Car accident. My son and his father blamed me for it. Said I should have warned them about the rain that night, should have told them not to drive. As if I controlled the weather, as if I could have known." She stopped breathing hard. "He hasn't spoken to me since. Changed his number. Moved away. But yesterday I got a call from someone claiming to work for him. Said they were coming today to discuss my arrangements. Said my son wanted to move me somewhere cheaper, somewhere." Her voice dropped. "Somewhere I wouldn't bother anyone anymore." Eddie's jaw tightened. "And you don't want to go?" "I'm not going anywhere." The steel in her voice could have cut glass. "My husband built this town. I nursed half the people in it back to health. I'm not being shipped off like damaged goods because my son found a way to ease his conscience and save money at the same time." "So you need a grandson to what?" "Tell these people to back off." "I need a grandson to make them think I'm not alone, that I have family who cares, who will notice if something happens to me." Maggie's eyes searched his face. "They're coming at 3 o'clock. It's 1:47 now. All I need is for you to sit here, act like you give a damn, and if they try anything, what? You look like a man who knows how to make people uncomfortable." Eddie almost smiled. "Yeah, I've been told that." "So will you do it?" "Please." He should have said no. Every instinct screamed at him to get out, to not get tangled up in some family drama that wasn't his problem. But something about the way she asked, not begging, not manipulating, just asking one human being to help another, got under his skin. 2 hours, he said. Then I'm gone. Relief washed over Maggie's face. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. I'm not exactly grandson material. You're perfect. She reached out and squeezed his hand. Her skin felt like paper. What's your name? Eddie. Well, Eddie, from this point forward, you're my grandson, Michael. You live in Sacramento. You're a contractor. You visit me every other week, but you came early today because you were worried about me. You've got this all planned out. I've had nothing but time to plan it. Maggie sat back. There's one more thing you should know. The men who are coming, I don't think they work for my son at all. Eddie's attention sharpened. What do you mean? I mean my son is weak, but he's not cruel. These men on the phone, they sounded, she searched for the word, hungry, like they were looking for an opportunity, not following orders. You think someone's trying to scam you. I think someone knows a vulnerable old woman when they see one. I think they're coming here to pressure me into signing something or agreeing to something, and once I do, I'll disappear into whatever facility they've picked out. One where nobody asks questions. Eddie's blood went cold. He'd seen this before, predators circling wounded prey, waiting for the moment to strike. You got any proof of this? No, just a feeling. Maggie met his eyes. But I've been alive 83 years. My feelings are usually right. Before Eddie could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Heavy, deliberate, multiple sets. Maggie's face went white. They're early. Eddie stood up, positioning himself between Maggie and the door. Stay calm. Let me handle this. Eddie, trust me. 2 men appeared in the doorway. Both wore cheap suits that didn't fit right. Both had the kind of eyes that cataloged everything in a room and calculated its value in seconds. The first one, tall, thin, with a smile that never reached his eyes, spoke first. Margaret Davis. That's me. Maggie's voice shook slightly. Can I help you? I'm Richard Holt. This is my associate, James Chen. We're here on behalf of your son regarding your care arrangements. His eyes slid to Eddie. And you are? Michael? Eddie's voice came out flat, dangerous. Her grandson. Holt's smile widened. I wasn't aware Margaret had any family who visited. Well, now you are. The tension in the room ratcheted up 10 degrees. Chen stepped forward, pulling out a folder. We don't mean to intrude on family time, but this really can't wait. We have some papers that need Mrs. Davis's signature today. What papers? Eddie didn't move from his position. Transfer documents. Your grandmother has agreed to move to a more suitable facility, one that can better meet her needs. I haven't agreed to anything, Maggie said, her voice stronger now. Holt's smile tightened. Mrs. Davis, we discussed this on the phone yesterday. You said you understood the situation. I said I'd think about it. That's not the same as agreeing. Be that as it may, your son has already made arrangements. The facility is expecting you next week. All we need is your signature to make it official. Eddie crossed his arms. She just said she didn't agree to anything. So whatever you're selling, you can take it somewhere else. Chen's expression hardened. This isn't your concern, mister. It is my concern. That's my grandmother you're trying to hustle. We're not hustling anyone. Holt's voice took on an edge. We're simply executing the wishes of Mrs. Davis's legal next of kin. Unless you have power of attorney. I don't need power of attorney to tell you to get lost. The room went silent. Holt and Chen exchanged a look. Something passed between them, some unspoken calculation. Perhaps we should come back at a better time. Holt set his tone sharp enough to cut, when family emotions aren't running quite so high. Don't bother, Eddie said. My grandmother's not interested. We'll see about that. Chen's eyes locked on Maggie. Mrs. Davis, you understand that refusing this arrangement could have consequences. Your son is very concerned about your welfare. If you're not cooperative, he may have to take more direct measures. Maggie's hands clenched in her lap, but she lifted her chin. You can tell my son if you actually work for him, which I doubt that I'm perfectly fine where I am. And if he wants to talk to me, he can pick up the phone himself instead of sending strangers to intimidate me. Holt's mask slipped for just a second. Eddie saw it, the flash of anger, of frustration, of a plan going sideways. You're making a mistake, Holt said quietly. No, Maggie replied. I don't think I am. The two men left without another word, but the threat hung in the air behind them like smoke. Eddie waited until their footsteps faded before turning to Maggie. You were right. Those guys weren't here on behalf of your son. How do you know? Because real lawyers don't make threats, and real family doesn't send goons to scare old women into signing papers. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. No. Maggie's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. Not yet. Why not? Because if we involve the police, they'll investigate. And if they investigate, they'll find out you're not really my grandson. And then, her voice cracked, then I really will be alone. Eddie looked down at this tiny woman who'd somehow roped him into the strangest afternoon of his life. You're not alone, not right now anyway. But you said 2 hours. It's been, she glanced at the clock. 20 minutes. He should have stuck to his word, should have done exactly what he promised and then walked away. But looking at Maggie, seeing the fear she was trying so hard to hide, Eddie felt something shift inside him. Plans change, he said. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Don't thank me. We don't know what those guys are planning next. So what do we do? Eddie pulled the chair closer and sat down. First, you're going to tell me everything you know about those men. Every detail, no matter how small. Then we're going to figure out what they really want. And then, his jaw set. We're going to make sure they never come near you again. Maggie nodded, wiping her eyes. The first call came 3 days ago. A man's voice, not Holt, someone else. He said he was a care coordinator working with my son. Said they'd found a wonderful place for me, very affordable, very comfortable. I told him I wasn't interested, but he kept calling. Different numbers each time. Then yesterday, Holt called, said they needed to finalize the arrangements today. Did any of them ask about money assets? Not directly, but they kept mentioning how expensive this place is, how my son was worried about the cost, how the new facility would be so much more reasonable. Maggie's hands twisted together. I'm not rich, Eddie, but I have a little money saved. My husband's pension, some investments, nothing that would interest professional criminals. How much is a little? She hesitated. About $300,000. Eddie's eyes narrowed. That's not nothing. That's enough to interest a lot of people. You think that's what they're after? I think it's a pretty good guess. He stood up, pacing a bit. They probably did some research, found out you're estranged from your son, figured you'd be an easy target. Get you to sign some papers, maybe giving them power of attorney or access to your accounts, then drain everything before anyone notices. Maggie's face paled. I almost signed. When Holt first called, I was so tired, so lonely, I almost just gave in. But you didn't. No, something stopped me. A voice in my head that sounded like my husband telling me to wait, to think it through. She looked up at Eddie, and then you showed up. Right place, right time, or wrong place, depending on how you look at it. Right place, Maggie said firmly. Definitely right place. Eddie's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, a text from his club president asking where he was. He'd been supposed to meet up with the guys 2 hours ago for a ride. He typed back a quick reply. Something came up. Catch you tomorrow. The response came immediately. Everything okay? Eddie looked at Maggie, who was watching him with those sharp, desperate eyes. Yeah, all good. He put the phone away. Your friends? Maggie asked. My club. We were supposed to ride today. And you're canceling because of me. I'm canceling because, yes, I do not like bullies. Never have. Eddie sat back down. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to stay here for the rest of the day. Maybe tonight too, if that's allowed. We're going to make it very clear that you've got someone looking out for you. And tomorrow we're going to the bank and making sure your accounts are locked down tight. You do that for me. Someone you just met. I've done worse for people I've known my whole life. He met her eyes. Besides, something about you reminds me of someone. Who? Eddie was quiet for a long moment. My mom. She was stubborn as like you. Tough. Didn't take shit from anybody right up until the cancer took her voice away. His hands clenched. She died alone in a place like this because I was too busy being angry at the world to visit her. By the time I pulled my head out of my ass, it was too late. Maggie reached out and took his hand. I'm sorry. Me too, every day. He squeezed her hand gently. But I can be here for you, and maybe that counts for something. It counts for everything. They sat like that for a while, an old woman and a biker connected by nothing except the strange gravity of a moment that neither of them had planned. Then Maggie smiled, really smiled for the first time since he'd met her. Michael, she said, tell me about your contracting business. Eddie raised an eyebrow. What? You heard me. If you're going to be my grandson, we need to get our story straight. So tell me, what kind of contracting do you do? And despite everything, despite the danger, despite the absurdity, despite the fact that his entire life had just taken a hard left turn into completely uncharted territory, Eddie laughed. All right, Grandma, let's make this convincing. Outside Maggie's window, the California sun began its slow descent toward evening. The nursing home settled into its familiar rhythms, dinner carts, rattling televisions, murmuring the shuffle of feet on linoleum. But in room 247, something had shifted. Two strangers had become something more. And neither of them knew it yet, but the men in cheap suits were just getting started. By 7 that evening, Eddie had heard Maggie's entire life story, and she'd heard enough of his to make him uncomfortable. So you've been with the club for 40 years, Maggie asked, picking at the terrible meatloaf the nursing home had served for dinner. 42. Joined when I was 21, fresh out of a bad situation that I'm not getting into. Eddie pushed his own tray aside. This food's criminal. You should try the breakfast, Maggie smiled. The eggs bounce. Jesus. Language, Michael. She winked at him, and Eddie found himself grinning despite everything. A nurse poked her head in young, tired-looking name tag that read Amanda. Mrs. Davis, visiting hours end at 8. Just wanted to give you a heads up. Eddie stood. Is there any way I can stay longer? My grandmother and I haven't seen each other in a while. Amanda hesitated. Technically, no, but she glanced at Maggie. Between you and me, nobody really enforces it if family wants to stay. Just keep it quiet, okay? Appreciate it. After Amanda left, Maggie raised an eyebrow. You're really staying the night, unless you want me to go. I don't. The vulnerability in her voice made Eddie's chest tight. But I also don't want you to feel obligated. I don't do anything I don't want to do. Haven't in years. He settled back into the chair. Besides, those guys might come back. And if they do, I want to be here. You think they will? I think they invested time and effort into this plan. They're not going to give up after one bad conversation. Maggie was quiet for a moment. Eddie, why are you really doing this? I told you, you remind me of, not the story you told me before, the real reason. Eddie looked at her, really looked at her. And he saw someone who'd spent 83 years learning how to read people, how to see past the bullshit. Because I'm tired, he said finally. Tired of being the guy who rides away. Tired of not giving a damn about anything except the next mile of road. My whole life I've made a point of not getting involved, not caring. And you know what? It's exhausting. So I'm what, your redemption project? No, you're someone who needs help. And for once in my miserable life, I'm in a position to give it. He met her eyes. That enough of a reason? Maggie smiled. Yeah, that's enough. The night settled in around them. Eddie dozed in the chair, jerking awake every time footsteps passed in the hallway. Maggie slept fitfully, her breathing raspy and uneven. Around 3 in the morning, Eddie's phone buzzed. He grabbed it, checking the screen. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him step into the hallway and swipe to accept. Yeah. Mr. Callahan. The voice was smooth-cultured, nothing like Holt or Chen. Or should I call you Michael? Eddie's blood went cold. Who is this? Someone who knows you're not Margaret Davis's grandson. Someone who knows you're a member of the Hells Angels, that you've spent the last 4 decades breaking laws and busting heads. Someone who knows that if the police looked into your background, they'd find all sorts of interesting things. What do you want? I want you to walk away. Right now, get on your bike and disappear. Forget you ever met Margaret Davis. And if I don't, then I'll make sure every cop in California knows exactly who you are and what you've done. I'll make sure your club gets investigated. I'll burn your whole life down, Mr. Callahan. All because you decided to play hero for some old woman you don't even know. Eddie's jaw clenched. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your phone. I just sent you something. Eddie pulled the phone away from his ear, looking at the screen. A photo had come through him and 3 other club members from 15 years ago standing over a man on the ground, clearly beaten. Eddie remembered that night. Remembered what that man had done to deserve it. That's assault with a deadly weapon at minimum, the voice continued. I have 6 more photos like it, different incidents, different years, all with your face clearly visible, all with timestamps and locations. You think your club can survive that kind of scrutiny? Who the hell are you? I'm the person who planned this very carefully. Margaret Davis has money that should belong to someone else. You're in the way. Remove yourself and everyone goes home happy. Stay involved and I'll destroy you. The line went dead. Eddie stood in the hallway shaking with rage. He wanted to put his fist through the wall, wanted to track down whoever just threatened him and make them regret every word. Instead, he walked back into Maggie's room. She was awake watching him. What happened? Someone just told me to back off or they'd ruin my life. Maggie's face went pale. Eddie, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you I'm staying. He sat down hard. But we need to be smarter about this. Whoever's running this show, they've got resources. They've got information, and they're not afraid to use it. What kind of information? Eddie told her about the photos, about the threats. When he finished, Maggie's hands were trembling. You should go. I mean it. I won't have you risking everything for me. Too late. I'm already involved. He leaned forward. Listen to me, and these people, they're counting on you being alone, being scared, being too weak to fight back. But you're not alone anymore, and I might be a lot of things, but I'm not weak. Neither am I, Maggie said quietly. But I'm also not stupid. If they can destroy you, then let them try. Eddie's voice went hard. I've been threatened by scarier people than some asshole with a phone and a folder of old photos. I'm not going anywhere, Samu. Maggie studied his face. You're really not, are you? No. Then what do? We figure out who's behind this. We find out what they really want, and we shut them down before they can make another move. How? Eddie thought for a moment. You said your son changed his number. Do you have any way to contact him? His ex-wife might. We still talk occasionally. Call her first thing in the morning. Find out if he actually knows anything about this facility transfer. If he doesn't, then we know for sure these people are running a con. Exactly. Maggie nodded slowly. Okay, I'll call Lisa at 8. She's an early riser. Good. Eddie pulled out his own phone, scrolling through contacts. And I'm calling in some backup. Your club. A couple guys I trust, people who know how to dig up information without leaving fingerprints. He sent a quick text to Tommy Wrench Martinez, his oldest friend in the club. Need a favor. Someone's trying to scam an old woman. They've got dirt on me. Need to know who they are and what they're planning. The response came 30 seconds later. On it. Send me everything you've got. Eddie forwarded the threatening text, the photos, everything. Maggie watched him work. You really think your friends can help? If anyone can, Tommy can. Guy used to work in military intelligence before he joined the club. He's forgotten more about tracking people than most cops ever learn. And you trust him? With my life. Have for 20 years. Then I trust him too. Eddie looked up at her. You don't even know him. No, but I know you. Maggie's voice was firm. And if you trust him, that's good enough for me. Something in Eddie's chest cracked open. When was the last time someone had faith in him like that? When was the last time someone looked at him and saw something other than a criminal in a leather vest? Get some sleep, he said roughly. Morning's going to come fast. You too. I'll sleep when this is over. Eddie, I'm fine, Maggie, really. She didn't argue, just settled back against her pillows and closed her eyes. Eddie watched her breathing, even out, watched her face relax into something that almost looked peaceful. His phone buzzed again. Tommy found something. Those photos were taken from police surveillance files. Whoever sent them either works for law enforcement or has access to their databases. Eddie typed back, that narrows it down. Not really. Could be a cop. Could be a PI with connections. Could be someone who hacked the system. But here's the thing, those files were sealed years ago. Someone went to a lot of trouble to dig them up, meaning whoever's threatening you has serious resources. This isn't some small-time con. This is organized. Eddie's stomach dropped. How organized? Still looking. But Eddie, watch your back. These people play for keeps. Eddie put the phone down, stared at the ceiling. What the hell had he gotten himself into? More importantly, what had Maggie gotten herself into? Morning came too soon. Eddie jerked awake to sunlight streaming through the window and the sound of breakfast carts rattling in the hallway. Maggie was already up, dressed phone in her hand. "I called Lisa," she said without preamble. "My ex-daughter-in-law. She hasn't heard from my son in 3 months. Said he's been traveling for work, barely checks in. She had no idea about any facility transfer. So he's not behind this." "No, which means someone's using his name to get to you." Eddie stood stretching muscles that had gone stiff from a night in a chair. "Did you tell Lisa what's going on?" "I told her some men came by claiming to work for David. She said she'd try to reach him, see if he knows anything." "Good." A knock at the door made them both freeze. Amanda, the nurse from last night, poked her head in. "Mrs. Davis, there's someone here to see you." Eddie moved to Maggie's side. "Who?" "A police officer says he needs to speak with Mrs. Davis about a complaint that was filed." Eddie and Maggie exchanged a look. "Send him in," Maggie said, her voice steady. The man who walked through the door wasn't in uniform. Plainclothes jeans, button-down shirt, detective's badge clipped to his belt. "Mrs. Davis, I'm Detective Robert Carson." He glanced at Eddie. "And you are Michael Davis, her grandson." Carson's expression didn't change. "Mind if I have a word with your grandmother alone?" "Actually, I do mind." "Eddie," Maggie said quietly. "It's all right." "No, it's not." Carson raised an eyebrow. "Having a family dispute, folks?" "We're not having anything," Eddie said. "What's this about?" Carson pulled out a small notebook. "We received a complaint yesterday evening. Someone reported that Mrs. Davis was being coerced by an individual claiming to be a family member. They suggested she might be in danger." Eddie's blood turned to ice. "That's ridiculous," Maggie said. "My grandson is here because I asked him to be. And you're comfortable with him being here. He's not pressuring you in any way. The only people who've pressured me are the men who showed up yesterday trying to get me to sign papers I didn't understand." Carson's eyes sharpened. "What men?" "Richard Holt and James Chen. They claim to work for my son, but I don't believe them." "Why not?" "Because my son doesn't care enough to make arrangements for my care, and because they threatened me when I refused to cooperate." Carson wrote something down. "Threatened you how?" "They said refusing could have consequences, that my son might have to take direct measures." Maggie's voice was strong, clear. "It felt like a threat, Detective." "And where was your grandson during this?" "Right there, he told them to leave." Carson's eyes moved to Eddie. "Is that accurate, Mr. Davis?" "Every word." "Can you describe these men for me?" Eddie described Holt and Chen in detail, height, build, the cheap suits, the way they moved. Carson kept writing. When Eddie finished, the detective looked up. "And you didn't think to call the police?" "We thought about it," Maggie said. "But we weren't sure if we were overreacting. They didn't actually do anything illegal, did they?" "That depends. If they were attempting fraud." Eddie's phone rang. He glanced at it. "Tommy, I need to take this," he said. Carson frowned. "We're not done here. It'll just take a minute." Eddie stepped into the hallway, accepting the call. "What have you got?" "Your detective friend, Robert Carson." Tommy's voice was tight. "He doesn't exist." "What?" "I ran his name through every database I could access. No Robert Carson works for any police department in California. Whoever that guy is, he's not a cop." Eddie's heart hammered. "You're sure, positive, which means they sent someone wearing a fake badge to intimidate Maggie." Eddie looked back at the room where the man claiming to be Carson was questioning Maggie. "I gotta go." He hung up and walked back inside. "Just a few more questions," fake Carson was saying, "about your financial situation. Do you have a will and power of attorney arrangements?" "Why would the police need to know that?" Eddie interrupted. Carson turned. "Because if there's a question of elder abuse or exploitation, we need to understand the full picture." "Show me your badge again." "Excuse me." "Your badge. Show it to me." Nice and slow. Something flickered in Carson's eyes. "I don't appreciate your tone, Mr. Davis. And I don't appreciate fake cops asking my grandmother about her money." Eddie moved forward. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave right now, before I call the real police and have you arrested for impersonation." Carson's hand moved toward his belt. Eddie was faster. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisted, had him against the wall before Carson could blink. "Don't," Eddie growled. "Eddie, don't hurt him." Maggie's voice cut through the rage. Eddie held Carson against the wall for another 3 seconds, then stepped back. Get out and tell whoever sent you that this isn't over. Carson straightened his shirt, his face flushed with anger. You just assaulted a police officer. You're not a police officer, and if you were, you'd be arresting me right now instead of making threats. Eddie pointed at the door. Get out. Carson looked at Maggie one more time. This isn't over, Mrs. Davis. You're making a very big mistake. The only mistake I made was opening my door to you. Maggie's voice cut like a knife. Now leave before my grandson decides to do more than just grab your wrist. Carson left. Eddie immediately went to the door, watched the fake detective disappear down the hallway. Are you okay? Maggie asked. Am I okay? What about you? I'm fine, shaken but fine. She sat down hard. They're really coming at us from every angle, aren't they? Yeah, and it's only going to get worse. Eddie pulled out his phone, dialing 911. But now they've crossed a line. Impersonating an officer is a felony. The real police showed up 20 minutes later. 2 actual detectives. Eddie checked their badges thoroughly, who took statements from both him and Maggie. They took descriptions of fake Carson, of Holt and Chen, of everything that had happened since yesterday afternoon. We'll investigate, the older detective Wilson said. But I have to be honest with you, Mrs. Davis. These kinds of scams can be hard to prosecute, especially if the perpetrators are careful. So what are we supposed to do? Maggie asked. Just wait for them to try again. We'll increase patrols in the area. Make sure the nursing home staff knows to call us if anyone suspicious shows up. But, Wilson hesitated, you might want to consider moving to a different facility. Just temporarily until we can sort this out. No, Maggie said firmly. I'm not running. Wilson looked at Eddie. You're her grandson. Eddie met his eyes. Yes. Then maybe you should consider staying close, at least for a few days. I'm not going anywhere. After the police left, Eddie and Maggie sat in silence. Finally, Maggie spoke. You know they're going to find out you're not really my grandson. Probably. And that won't look good for either of us. I know. So maybe, she took a breath, maybe we should tell the truth before they find out on their own. Eddie thought about it. If we do that, they might not let me stay. Might not let me protect you. If we don't and they find out anyway, they'll think we've been lying. Think we have something to hide. She was right. Eddie knew she was right. Okay, he said. Next time the police come by, we come clean. We tell them I'm not your grandson, but that I'm here because you asked for help. They might not understand. They don't have to understand. They just have to accept it. Maggie nodded, then she reached out and took his hand. Thank you for everything. We're not out of this yet. I know, but thank you anyway. Eddie squeezed her hand, started to pull away, but Maggie held on. What? He asked. I want you to know something. If this all goes bad, if they win, if I end up in some facility somewhere, I want you to know that these last 2 days have meant more to me than you could possibly understand. For the first time in 6 years, I feel invisible. Eddie's throat went tight. Maggie, let me finish. I know this started as a favor, as you helping someone in trouble, but it's become more than that, at least for me. Her eyes searched his. You've become more than that. Same here, Eddie managed. Good, because I have a feeling things are about to get a lot worse before they get better. She had no idea how right she was. Eddie's phone buzzed. Another text from Tommy. Found the connection. Margaret Davis's husband was a city contractor. Built half the government buildings in this county. After he died, there was a lawsuit. Someone claimed he'd cut corners, used substandard materials. It was dismissed, but the paperwork shows he had a $3 million insurance policy that paid out to Margaret. Eddie stared at the screen. $3 million. Not 300,000. $3 million. He looked at Maggie. How much money do you actually have? Her face went very still. What? Your savings. You told me 300,000, but that's not the whole truth, is it? Maggie looked away. No, to him. How much, Maggie? A little over 2 million. The rest went to taxes and legal fees from the lawsuit. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to think I was rich. Didn't want you to think that's why I needed help. Jesus Christ, Eddie stood up pacing. Do you have any idea what kind of people would kill for that kind of money? I'm sorry, I should have told you. Yeah, you should have. He spun to face her. $2 million, Maggie. These people aren't running some small-time con. They're going for everything you have, and they'll do whatever it takes to get it. I know. Do you? Because up until 5 seconds ago, I thought we were dealing with scammers looking for a quick score. But this is different. This is dangerous. I know, Maggie repeated, her voice stronger now. Why do you think I was so scared? Why do you think I grabbed the first person who walked by and begged them to pretend to be my grandson? Eddie stared at her. You knew it was this bad from the beginning. Yes. And you didn't tell me because if I'd told you about the money, you would have walked away. You would have thought I was trying to buy protection, or that I was just another rich old woman too paranoid for her own good. Tears filled her eyes. But I'm not rich. I'm just someone who has something other people want. And I'm terrified they're going to take it, along with everything else. Eddie felt his anger drain away. Maggie, I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. He crossed the room, knelt in front of her chair. Listen to me. I'm not going anywhere. You hear me? I don't care if it's 300,000 or 3 million. You needed help. You still need help. And I'm going to make damn sure you get it. Even after I lied to you. You didn't lie. You just didn't tell me the whole truth. And honestly, I probably would have done the same thing in your position. Maggie touched his face, her hand shaking. How did I get so lucky? Lucky? Eddie almost laughed. Maggie, you're being hunted by criminals who want your money. That's not lucky. No, but finding you is. Before Eddie could respond, his phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. He answered it. Yeah. Mr. Callahan, the same smooth voice from last night. I see you didn't take my advice. Go to hell. I'm going to give you one more chance. Walk away from Margaret Davis. Right now, or what? You'll release your photos. Go ahead. I don't care anymore. A pause, then, perhaps you should care about Mrs. Davis instead. The line went dead. Eddie's blood turned to ice. Maggie, we need to leave. Right now. What? Why? Because they just threatened you directly, and I don't think they're bluffing. He was pulling her to her feet when the fire alarm went off. The alarm shrieked through the building like something dying. Eddie grabbed Maggie's arm. We're leaving, now. But the alarm, shouldn't we evacuate with everyone else? That's exactly what they want. Come on. He pulled her toward the door, but the hallway was already filling with people, nurses rushing to help residents, confused elderly people shuffling out of rooms, the chaos multiplying by the second. Eddie, I can't move that fast, Maggie gasped. He looked at her, really looked, and saw how frail she was, how slow. In a stampede, she'd get trampled. All right, change of plan. He steered her back into the room, shut the door. We stay put until I know this is real. What if there's actually a fire? Then we'll smell smoke. Right now I smell a setup. Eddie moved to the window, looked down. 3 stories up. Too high to jump, even if Maggie could make it. He pulled out his phone, called Tommy. Yeah, Tommy answered over the sound of a motorcycle engine. Where are you? About 10 minutes out. What's wrong? I can hear an alarm. Fire alarm just went off. I think it's a diversion. Get her out of there. Right now. Working on it. Eddie scanned the parking lot below. 2 vans had just pulled up, white unmarked wrong. Tommy, how fast can you get here? 8 minutes if I push it. 7 if I'm willing to lose my license. Make it 6. Eddie hung up and turned to Maggie. Listen to me very carefully. We're about to have company. Bad company, and I need you to do exactly what I say when I say it. Can you do that? Maggie's face had gone pale, but her voice was steady. Yes. Good. Get in the bathroom. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. Eddie. Now, Maggie. She moved. Eddie waited until he heard the bathroom lock click, then positioned himself beside the door, listening. Footsteps in the hallway. Moving fast, moving wrong. Too purposeful for evacuation, too quiet for panic. The doorknob turned. Eddie's muscles tensed. The door opened and 2 men came through, not Holt and Chen, different ones. Bigger. They had the look of guys who got paid to hurt people and enjoyed the work. The first one saw Eddie and his hand went to his jacket. Eddie moved first. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisted, heard something crack. The man screamed. Eddie used the momentum to slam him into his partner, sending both of them stumbling backward into the hallway. "Stay down," Eddie warned. They didn't listen. The second guy came at Eddie fast, throwing a punch that had real weight behind it. Eddie blocked countered with an elbow to the jaw that sent the guy reeling. But the first one was back up despite his broken wrist, pulling something from his jacket. A syringe. Eddie's blood went cold. They weren't here to scare Maggie. They were here to take her. He kicked the syringe out of the man's hand, heard it shatter against the wall. The man lunged at him and Eddie met him halfway, driving his fist into the guy's solar plexus. The man went down, gasping. The second guy pulled a phone from his pocket. Eddie grabbed it, threw it down the hallway, then grabbed the guy by his collar. "Who sent you?" The guy just smiled, blood on his teeth. Eddie slammed him against the wall. "I asked you a question." "You're already dead," the guy wheezed. "You just don't know it yet." Eddie heard more footsteps coming. Multiple sets. He let the guy drop, ran back into the room, locked the door. "Maggie, we're leaving." The bathroom door opened. Maggie's eyes were huge. "What happened?" "They sent a team. We need to move." "But you said..." "I was wrong. The fire alarm's real. They're using the evacuation to grab you." Eddie grabbed her walker, she'd need it, then opened the door a crack, looked out. The two men he'd fought were gone. The hallway was clearing, most people already evacuated, but he could hear voices at the end of the corridor getting closer. "This way." He pulled Maggie in the opposite direction toward the back stairs. They'd made it maybe 20 feet when a voice called out behind them. "Mrs. Davis, stop right there." Eddie turned. 3 more men, all wearing security uniforms that looked just official enough to fool someone in a panic. "Keep walking," Eddie murmured to Maggie. "I said stop." Eddie positioned himself between Maggie and the men. "She's evacuating, like everyone else. Get out of our way." The lead man, tall crew, cut dead eyes, shook his head. "Can't do that. We have orders to bring her to safety." "Safety, right." Eddie's hand clenched. The kind of safety that comes with a syringe and a white van. Crew Cut's expression didn't change. "Last chance. Hand her over." "Come take her." Crew Cut nodded to the men beside him. They started forward. Eddie pushed Maggie behind him. "Run. Backstairs. Don't stop." "Eddie, go." She went. The first man reached Eddie and found out why 42 years in a motorcycle club meant 42 years of learning how to fight dirty. Eddie went for the eyes, the throat, the knees, every vulnerable point he knew. The man dropped. The second one got in a solid hit to Eddie's ribs that made something crunch. Eddie ignored the pain, grabbed the guy's arm, twisted until he felt a shoulder pop out of socket. The man screamed. Crew Cut just watched, calculating. "You're good," he said. "Better than I expected. But you're also 63 years old and fighting 3 guys half your age. This doesn't end well for you." "Doesn't have to end well, just has to last long enough." "Long enough for what?" The answer came in the form of a Harley engine roaring into the parking lot below, loud enough to shake the windows. Tommy had made it in 5 minutes. Crew Cut's eyes narrowed. "Back up, smart. I have my moments." "Won't matter. We have 12 guys here. Your friend makes it 2 against 12. And we still have a crash from the stairwell, a woman's scream, Maggie." Eddie's heart stopped. He started toward the stairs and Crew Cut moved to block him. "Out of my way." "Make me." Eddie did. He hit Crew Cut with everything he had, every ounce of rage, every bit of fear, every drop of desperate energy in his aging body. Crew Cut went down, blood pouring from his nose. Eddie ran for the stairs. He found Maggie 2 floors down, pressed against the wall. A 4th man had her by the arm, trying to pull her toward the exit. "Let her go." The man looked up, smiled. "Or what, old man?" Eddie didn't answer, just came down the stairs faster than he should have been able to move and hit the guy with his full weight. They both went down hard, rolling, punching, grappling on the concrete landing. The man was younger, stronger, but Eddie was meaner, and he'd been in 100 fights that meant something. This one meant everything. He got on top, pinned the guy's arms, drove his forehead into the man's nose. Once, twice. The man went limp. Eddie stood up swaying. His ribs screamed. His knuckles were bleeding. He was pretty sure he'd pulled something in his back. "Eddie," Maggie's voice was small, scared. "I'm okay." He wasn't. "Can you walk?" "I think so." They made it down one more flight before Eddie heard footsteps above them, multiple people coming fast. Faster, he urged. Maggie was trying, but she was 83 and terrified and moving as fast as her body would allow. They weren't going to make it. The stairwell door, one floor down, burst open. Eddie tensed, ready to fight again. Tommy came through, followed by 3 other club members Eddie recognized. Big Mike Cisco and Danny the Knife. About damn time, Eddie managed. Yeah, well, traffic was a bitch. Tommy looked at Maggie. Ma'am, thank you for coming. Eddie said you needed help. That's enough. Tommy looked up at the sound of footsteps above. We got company. At least 6 guys, maybe more. They're trying to kidnap her. Then let's introduce them to the concept of a bad idea. Tommy pulled something from his jacket, not a gun, Eddie noted with relief, but a heavy maglite. Mike, Danny with me. Cisco, get them out of here. I can fight, Eddie protested. You can barely stand. Cisco, move. Cisco's 6'4", 300 pounds of muscle and motorcycle maintenance expertise gently took Maggie's arm. This way, ma'am. My bike's out front. I can't ride a motorcycle, Maggie said. You can if I'm driving. Trust me. Eddie wanted to argue, wanted to stay and fight, but his body was giving out, and he knew it. Go, Tommy said. We'll handle this. Eddie nodded. Let Cisco lead them down the final flight and out the emergency exit. The parking lot was chaos, people everywhere, fire trucks pulling up, real security, trying to figure out what was happening. Cisco's Harley sat at the curb engine running. He'd left it on when he came in. All right, ma'am, climb on behind me. Hold tight. Eddie, you take Danny's bike keys are in it. I'm not leaving you alone with her. Then ride next to us. But we need to move before those guys figure out where we went. Eddie found Danny's bike, threw his leg over. His ribs protested. He ignored them. Cisco got Maggie settled behind him, made sure her arms were around his waist. Ready. No, Maggie said. Good enough. They pulled out fast, Eddie right beside them. Behind them, Eddie heard shouting, saw men pouring out of the building. Go! Eddie yelled. Cisco opened the throttle. Eddie had ridden with a lot of people over the years. But watching Cisco navigate traffic with an 83-year-old woman on the back of his bike, treating her like she was made of glass, while still moving fast enough to lose their pursuers, that was something special. 10 minutes later, they pulled into a parking garage downtown. Cisco killed the engine. We're safe here, he said, helping Maggie off the bike. For now. Maggie's legs were shaking so bad she could barely stand. Eddie caught her before she fell. I've got you. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. For what? For getting you into this. For, her voice broke. For ruining your life. You didn't ruin anything. Eddie held her steady. These assholes did, and we're going to make them pay for it. Cisco's phone rang. He answered, he listened, his face darkening. Yeah, okay, we'll wait. He hung up. Tommy and the guys got out clean. They're heading to the clubhouse. Said we should meet them there. No, Eddie said. Too predictable. These guys knew where to find Maggie. They might know about the clubhouse, too. So where? Eddie thought fast. The old garage on 5th Street, the one we used to use for repairs before we upgraded. That place is a dump. Exactly. Nobody knows about it except old-timers. And it's got thick walls and one entrance. Easier to defend if we have to. Cisco nodded. I'll text Tommy the address. They rode in silence to the garage, a decrepit building on the edge of the industrial district that looked like it should have been condemned years ago. Inside it smelled like oil and rust and forgotten things. But it was safe for now. Eddie helped Maggie sit on an old workbench, then finally let himself acknowledge the pain in his ribs. You're hurt, Maggie said. I'm fine. You're not fine. You can barely breathe. It's just bruised ribs. Let me see. Maggie. I was a nurse for 40 years, Eddie. Let me see. He lifted his shirt. The bruise was already spreading dark purple and angry. Maggie's hands were gentle as she probed the area. Nothing's broken, but you need ice and probably a painkiller. I need to figure out who's trying to kill you. We need to figure it out. This is my problem, Eddie. Mine. No, it's ours. The word hung in the air between them. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. Why are you doing this? Really, you could have left a dozen times. Could have walked away and never looked back. Why didn't you? Eddie was quiet for a long moment. You really want to know? Yes. Because watching you sit in that room scared and alone, and trying so hard to be brave, it reminded me of my mom. But it also reminded me of me. Every time I've been backed into a corner, every time I've had to choose between running and fighting. And I realized something. What? I've been running my whole life, from family, from responsibility, from anything that might actually matter. And I'm tired of it. He met her eyes. You asked me to pretend to be your grandson. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being pretend, at least for me. Maggie touched his face. For me too. Cisco cleared his throat. Hate to interrupt, but we've got company. Eddie spun around. Tommy and the others were coming through the door. Everyone make it? Eddie asked. Yeah, lost them about 6 blocks out. Tommy looked at Maggie. Good, Maggie. You okay, ma'am? I've been better, but I'm alive thanks to all of you. Don't thank us yet. Tommy pulled out his phone, showed Eddie a photo. You need to see this. The photo showed a man in his 50s, expensive suit, cold eyes. Eddie didn't recognize him. Who is he? Marcus Webb, real estate developer, worth about $50 million. And according to my sources, he was your husband's business partner 30 years ago. Maggie went very still. Carl never mentioned a Marcus Webb. Probably because Webb screwed him over. There was a deal, a big municipal contract for a new courthouse. Your husband submitted a bid. Webb submitted a lower one using materials and specifications he stole from your husband's proposal. Webb got the contract. Your husband got nothing. How do you know all this? I've been digging into your husband's business history all morning. The lawsuit after his death, the one about substandard materials. Webb's company started those rumors, paid an inspector to file a false report. It almost destroyed your husband's reputation. Maggie's face had gone pale, but it was dismissed. The judge threw it out. Yeah, but not before it cost your husband thousands in legal fees. Not before it caused him stress that... Tommy hesitated. Ma'am, is it true your husband died of a heart attack? Yes, 3 years after the lawsuit was settled. The stress could have contributed, and if Webb knew about the insurance payout, knew you'd gotten the money, he'd want it, Eddie finished. As payback for the contract he thought your husband stole from him. But Carl didn't steal anything. Webb doesn't care. Guys like that, they see the world as a zero-sum game. If you have something, they don't, and they'll do whatever it takes to even the score. Maggie stood up, swaying slightly. So what do we do, Uham? We end this, Eddie said, one way or another. How? We give Webb what he wants. Everyone stared at Eddie. You've lost your damn mind, Tommy said. No, listen, he wants Maggie's money, so we offer it to him. Set up a meeting, get him to come to us. And then what? And then we record him confessing to everything. The fake cops, the kidnapping attempt, all of it. Once we have proof, we take it to the real police and let them handle it. He'll never confess, Cisco said. He will if he thinks he's won. Guys like Webb, they can't help gloating. They need people to know how smart they are. Eddie looked at Maggie. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Why? So, yes. Even if it means putting yourself in danger. I'm already in danger. At least this way we're fighting back. Tommy shook his head. This is a terrible idea. You got a better one. Yeah, we grab Webb ourselves, make him call off his dogs. That's kidnapping. And it makes us the criminals. We already are criminals. Have been for 40 years. Maybe, but Maggie isn't. And I'm not dragging her into something that could land her in jail. Eddie's voice was firm. We do this clean, we do this right, or we don't do it at all. Tommy looked at him for a long moment. When did you get so noble? About 2 days ago? Cisco laughed. Big Mike grinned. Even Danny cracked a smile. All right, Tommy said. We'll try it your way. But if this goes sideways, if it goes sideways, you have my permission to say I told you so. Deal. Maggie pulled out her phone. How do we contact Webb? We don't, Eddie said. We contact Holt and Chen. Tell them Maggie's ready to cooperate, that she wants to make arrangements to transfer her assets. They'll know it's a trap. Maybe, but they'll also know their employer wants results. And if they can deliver Maggie willingly, it's easier than trying to kidnap her again. Eddie pulled out his own phone. Tommy, I need you to find out where Webb's staying. Cisco, I need equipment, recording devices, something we can hide on Maggie. Mike, Danny, your muscle. If things go bad, we need to get her out fast. What about you? Tommy asked. I'm going to be right there with her, every step. Eddie, if Webb recognizes you. He won't. To him, I'm just some biker who got lucky. He doesn't know I'm the one thing standing between him and $2 million. Maggie grabbed Eddie's hand. What if he does know? What if he's been watching us this whole time? Then we adapt. But we're not backing down. Not now. She squeezed his hand. Okay. But Eddie, if something happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you. But if it does, I want you to know. Her voice shook. These 2 days with you have been the best 2 days I've had in years. You made me feel like I mattered again, like I was worth protecting. And I'll never forget that. Eddie's throat went tight. Maggie, let me finish. I don't have family, haven't had real family since my husband died. But if I did, if I could choose, I'd choose you. Not because you pretended to be my grandson, but because you became something real. Eddie pulled her into a careful hug, mindful of his ribs and her fragility. You're family now, real family, and I don't let family get hurt. Behind them, Tommy cleared his throat. All right, enough with the emotions. We've got work to do. Eddie pulled back, wiping his eyes quickly. Yeah, let's do this. Tommy started making calls. Cisco disappeared to gather equipment. Mike and Danny went to scout the building's exits. Eddie and Maggie sat together on the workbench, not talking, just being. Finally, Eddie's phone rang, unknown number. He answered it. Yeah, Mr. Callahan, the smooth voice. Not Webb, someone else. I understand you and Mrs. Davis had quite an exciting morning. You could say that. I'm calling to offer you one final opportunity. Convince Mrs. Davis to cooperate, and we'll forget about the unpleasantness at the nursing home. Everyone walks away. No harm, no foul. What kind of cooperation are we talking about? A simple transfer of assets. Mrs. Davis signs some paperwork, moves to a nice facility where she'll be well cared for, and this all goes away. And if she refuses, a pause. Then things will become considerably more difficult for both of you. Eddie looked at Maggie. She nodded. All right, Eddie said. She'll cooperate. But I'm coming with her, and we do this somewhere public, somewhere safe. That can be arranged. I'll text you the details within the hour. The line went dead. Eddie set the phone down. They're going for it. Now what? Now we wait and we prepare. Maggie's hand found his. I'm scared. Me too. But you're still doing this. Yeah. Why? Eddie thought about all the reasons he could give, all the noble justifications. But in the end, there was only one truth that mattered. Because you asked me to. The text came 43 minutes later. Eddie read it aloud. Rosewood Plaza Hotel, downtown, conference room B, 6 o'clock tonight, come alone. Alone, Tommy shook his head. That's not happening. It has to look like we're alone, Eddie said, which means you guys need to already be there. Blend in. Cisco was threading a wire through Maggie's sweater, connecting it to a tiny microphone he'd taped between her shoulder blades. This'll pick up everything within 15 feet. Audio quality's good enough for court. If we make it to court, Maggie said quietly. We will. Eddie's voice was more confident than he felt. Tommy, you got a visual on Webb yet? Tommy held up his phone. Security footage from the hotel lobby. A man in his 50s, gray hair, $1,000 suit, walking like he owned the building. Behind him, Holt and Chen. That's him, Tommy confirmed. Checked in 2 hours ago, penthouse suite, traveled with 4 personal security guards and a lawyer. A lawyer, great. Eddie studied Webb's face, memorizing it. What else, y'all? Guy's got a reputation. Ruthless businessman, sued his own brother over a property deal, fired 300 employees the day after Christmas because it looked better on the quarterly report. He's exactly the kind of sociopath who'd torture an old woman for money he doesn't even need. Maggie's hands were shaking. Eddie took them in his own. You don't have to do this, he said. We can find another way. There is no other way. You know that. She met his eyes. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. If this goes bad, if he gets me, don't do anything stupid trying to save me. Don't throw your life away for mine. Maggie. Promise me, Eddie, please. Eddie looked at this woman who'd become family in 2 days, who'd trusted him when she had no reason to, who'd given him something he'd been missing for 40 years without even knowing what it was. I can't promise that, he said quietly. Because if something happens to you, I'm getting you back, no matter what it costs. Tears filled Maggie's eyes. You stubborn old fool. Takes one to know one. She almost smiled. Then she pulled him close, whispered in his ear, "My bank account information is in a safety deposit box at First National. Box 447. The key's taped under the drawer in my nightstand at the nursing home. If I don't make it through this, stop. If I don't make it, that money's yours, all of it. Use it for something good." Eddie pulled back. "I don't want your money." "I know. That's why I'm giving it to you." She touched his face. "You're the best thing that's happened to me in years, Eddie Callahan. Don't you forget that." Before Eddie could respond, his phone rang again. The smooth voice. "Change of plans. We'll be waiting for you in the parking garage instead. Level 3, Section D, more private." "The hell we will. Conference room or nothing." "Mr. Callahan, I don't think you understand your position here. You're outnumbered, outmaneuvered, and running out of the time. The parking garage, 6 o'clock. Don't be late." The line went dead. Tommy swore. "They're moving it to a secondary location. That's bad." "Why?" Maggie asked. "Because parking garages have no witnesses, no security cameras in the right spots, and about a dozen exits if things go sideways." Tommy looked at Eddie. "This is a trap." "Of course it's a trap. The question is whether we can spring it on them instead of them springing it on us." "How?" Eddie thought fast. "Mike and Danny, you're in a car on level 2, engine running. Ready to move? Cisco, you're on foot on level 4. High ground. Tommy, you're with me and Maggie in the van. We go in like we're cooperating, but the second I give the signal..." "What signal?" "I'll say nice weather we're having. That means things are going bad and we need to extract. And if you can't say it..." Eddie pulled up his sleeve, showed them the old watch he'd been wearing for 30 years. "This watch has an alarm. If I trigger it, you hear 3 beeps. That means I'm in trouble and can't talk." Maggie's face had gone very pale. "This is really happening." "Yeah, but we're ready for it." "Are we?" "These people have already tried to kidnap me twice. They've impersonated police officers. They've set off fire alarms and sent men with syringes. What makes you think they'll just sit down and have a conversation? Because right now they think they're winning. They think we're desperate enough to make a deal, and desperate people make mistakes." "So do we," Maggie said quietly. She wasn't wrong. They spent the next 2 hours preparing. Cisco ran through the equipment 3 times, making sure everything worked. Tommy mapped out escape routes. Mike and Danny checked their bikes, made sure they could move fast if needed. Eddie sat with Maggie in a corner of the garage, watching her try to keep it together. "You know what's funny?" she said suddenly. "What?" 2 days ago, my biggest worry was whether the Jell-O at dinner would be red or green. Now I'm about to walk into a parking garage wired for sound so I can trick a millionaire into confessing to attempted kidnapping. Life comes at you fast. You can say that again. She looked at him. "Do you ever regret it?" "Saying yes when I asked for help?" Eddie thought about it. Really thought about it. "No," he said finally. "I regret a lot of things in my life, but this isn't one of them. Even if it gets you killed." Even then, Maggie's hand found his. They sat like that until Tommy called out that it was time to go. The drive to the Rosewood Plaza took 12 minutes. Eddie drove the van, Maggie in the passenger seat, Tommy in the back monitoring the recording equipment. "Audio's good," Tommy said. "Remember, we need him to say something incriminating. Something that directly connects him to the attempts on your life." "I remember," Maggie said. "And Eddie, don't do anything heroic. We're here to get evidence, not start a war." Eddie didn't answer. The parking garage loomed ahead, concrete and shadow, and nowhere to run. Eddie pulled in, followed the signs to level 3. Section D was empty except for 3 cars, 2 black SUVs and a Mercedes that probably cost more than Eddie had earned in his entire life. Eddie parked 20 feet away, cut the engine. "You ready?" he asked Maggie. "No, but let's do it anyway." They got out. Tommy stayed in the van, headphones on, monitoring. Webb stepped out of the Mercedes. Up close, he looked older than his photos, lines around his eyes, gray at his temples. But there was something cold in his face that age couldn't touch. Holt and Chen flanked him. 2 more men Eddie didn't recognize stood by the SUVs. "Mrs. Davis?" Webb's voice was smooth-cultured. "Thank you for being reasonable." "I want this over with," Maggie said. Her voice shook slightly. "Perfect. As do we all. I understand you've had quite an ordeal." "Your men tried to kidnap me, twice." Webb's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. My associates were simply trying to help you transition to better care. With syringes. For your safety, you were clearly distressed. Eddie wanted to punch him, held himself back. Webb turned his attention to Eddie. And you must be the famous grandson, though I understand you're not actually related to Mrs. Davis at all. Eddie's blood went cold. Where'd you hear that? I make it my business to know things. Edward Callahan, age 63, member of the Hells Angels for 42 years. Quite a rap sheet, though nothing that stuck. You're not Margaret's grandson. You're just some biker who got involved in something that's none of his business. She asked for help. I gave it. That's my business. Noble, but ultimately pointless. Webb pulled an envelope from his jacket. Mrs. Davis, these are the papers I need you to sign. Power of attorney asset transfer agreements, consent for medical care decisions. Very standard. Maggie took the envelope with shaking hands. And if I sign these, then you'll be transferred to a lovely facility in Arizona. Very peaceful, very private. You'll be well cared for. Arizona. Maggie's voice was flat. Far from anyone who might notice what happens to me. Far from the stress of California living. You've had a difficult time, Margaret. You deserve rest. What I deserve is to be left alone. Webb's smile tightened. That's not an option anymore. You have something that belongs to me. There it was. The edge of truth. Belongs to you. Maggie's voice got stronger. I don't have anything of yours. Your husband stole a contract from me 30 years ago. Cost me millions in future revenue. That insurance payout, that's my money. He never would have had the success to earn it without stealing my work first. Carl never stole anything. He stole everything. Webb's composure cracked. I gave him those specifications. I showed him how to underbid the competition. And he turned around and cut me out of the deal. That's not what happened, Maggie said, but her voice wavered. Webb saw it, smiled. You don't actually know, do you? You want to believe your husband was some noble contractor who built his business honestly, but the truth is he was as ruthless as I am. He just hid it better. You're lying. Ask yourself why he never mentioned me, why there's no record of our partnership in his papers, why he went out of his way to erase me from his history. Maggie's hands clenched on the envelope. Even if that were true, and I don't believe it is, that doesn't give you the right to terrorize me, to try to kidnap me, to reclaim what's mine. I think it does. Webb stepped closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign those papers. You're going to transfer every dollar of that insurance money to an account I've set up. And then you're going to disappear into a facility where you'll live out your remaining years in medicated comfort. And if I refuse, Webb's face went cold, then your friend Eddie here is going to have a terrible accident, something involving his motorcycle. Very tragic. And without him around to protect you, well, accidents happen to elderly people all the time. Eddie's jaw clenched. You threatening me? I'm stating facts. You're in over your head, Mr. Callahan. You're a 63-year-old biker with no legal standing, no family connections, and no power. You can't save her. You can only get yourself killed trying. Maybe, but I'll take you with me. Would you? Webb pulled out his phone, showed Eddie the screen. Security footage. The clubhouse, Tommy's apartment, Big Mike's house. I know where your friends live. I know where they work. I know the names of their children. You want to play hero, fine. But understand that if this doesn't end the way I want it to, I'll burn your entire world down. Eddie felt ice spread through his chest. Webb had them. Completely. Maggie saw it too. Her face went white. Don't hurt them. Please. This is between you and me. Then sign the papers. Maggie's voice broke. I need a pen. Webb held one out. Eddie watched Maggie take it, her hand shaking so badly she could barely hold it. This was wrong. This was all wrong. They were supposed to get a confession, supposed to get evidence, but Webb was too smart. He'd said just enough to incriminate himself while making it clear that fighting back would cost everyone Eddie cared about. Maggie opened the envelope, pulled out the papers. Don't, Eddie said quietly. I have to. No, you don't. Eddie, he'll kill you. He'll kill your friends. I won't have that on my conscience. Listen to the lady, Webb said. She's smarter than you are. Maggie put the pen to paper. Eddie's watch beeped 3 times. He hadn't triggered it. Tommy had. The van door flew open. Tommy jumped out, gun in his hand. Where the hell had he gotten a gun pointed directly at Webb? Don't move. Webb didn't even flinch, just smiled. And now we add armed assault to the list of charges. Excellent. The 2 men by the SUVs pulled their own weapons. Suddenly, there were 3 guns pointed at Tommy, 1 pointed at Webb. Put it down, one of the guards said. No, Tommy replied. His voice was steady. We're all going to back away slowly. Mrs. Davis, Eddie, get in the van. If you take her, I'll have every cop in California looking for you, Webb said. You'll be fugitives. Is that really what you want? Better than letting you win. I've already won. The only question is how many people get hurt before you accept that. Eddie's mind raced. They were outgunned, outnumbered. And Webb was right. If they took Maggie and ran, they'd be criminals. Real criminals, not just bikers with a history. But if they stayed, Maggie would lose everything. There's a third option, Eddie said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. The money, you want the money, right? That's all you actually care about. Obviously. Then take it, all of it. But you leave Maggie alone, completely. No facility in Arizona, no more threats. She gets to live out her life in peace. Maggie grabbed his arm. Eddie, no. It's just money, Maggie. You can live without it. That's not the point. Yes, it is. Eddie looked at Webb. $2 million. That's what you want. So take it, but you leave her alone. Webb studied him. And what's to stop her from going to the police the minute I leave? I am, because if she does, you will release those photos of me. Release whatever dirt you have on my club. We both have leverage. We both have something to lose, so we make a deal and we stick to it. Eddie, don't do this, Maggie whispered. It's already done. Webb considered it. Interesting proposition, but I don't trust you, either of you. Then what would it take? What would make you trust us? Webb's smile returned. I want her to sign the papers right now, all of them, and I want you to leave, immediately. No recording devices, no witnesses, just her signature and my money. That wasn't the deal. That's the new deal. Take it or leave it. Tommy's gun hand was shaking. Eddie, put it down, Tommy. What? Put the gun down. This isn't the way. He's going to screw us. I know, but if we shoot him, we're murderers. And Maggie becomes an accessory. Is that what you want? Tommy's face twisted with frustration. But slowly he lowered the gun. Webb's smile widened. Smart man. Now, Mrs. Davis. The papers. Maggie looked at Eddie. I can't do this. You have to. There's no other way. There's always another way. Not this time. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she picked up the pen. And that's when Eddie heard it. Sirens. Webb heard them too. His face went tight. What did you do? Nothing, Eddie said. But his heart was pounding. The sirens got louder, closer. Webb's phone rang. He answered it, listened, his face going from confident to furious in 3 seconds. Which one of you called the police? Wasn't us, Tommy said. Then who? A voice echoed through the parking garage. This is the police. Everyone put your hands where we can see them. 6 police cars poured onto level 3. Real cops this time. Eddie could see it in the way they moved, the way they held their weapons. Webb's guards dropped their guns immediately, hands up. Tommy did the same. Eddie and Maggie just stood there frozen. A woman in a detective's badge stepped forward. Marcus Webb. Yes. You're under arrest for attempted kidnapping, fraud, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. This is ridiculous. I haven't done anything. We have recordings, multiple witnesses, and a very cooperative informant. The detective looked past Webb. Mrs. Davis, are you all right? Yes. How did you? Your ex-daughter-in-law called us 3 hours ago, said you were in danger. We've been listening to the wire in your sweater since you entered this garage. Eddie's head spun. Lisa. Maggie's ex-daughter-in-law had called the police. Maggie's eyes went wide. But I didn't tell her about. She called me, Tommy interrupted, after you called her this morning. Said something didn't sound right. Asked if you were in trouble. I told her everything. You called the cops? Eddie stared at him. After everything we said about doing this clean? Yeah, because I knew your plan would get you both killed. So I made my own plan. Tommy looked at Maggie. Sorry for going behind your back, ma'am, But I wasn't letting you walk into this alone. The detective moved to cuff Webb. He jerked away. You can't arrest me. I haven't committed any crime. We have you on tape threatening Mrs. Davis, admitting to surveillance, threatening Mr. Callahan's friends and family. That's more than enough. Webb's face went purple. Those recordings are inadmissible. They were obtained without my consent. California is a two-party consent state for private recordings, but this parking garage, the detective gestured around, it's got security cameras, which means there's no expectation of privacy, and we had probable cause to monitor a potential crime in progress. The recordings are perfectly legal. Webb's mouth opened, closed, opened again. He had nothing. Eddie watched them lead Webb away, watched Holt and Chen and the guards get cuffed and loaded into separate cars. It was over. They'd won. Maggie turned to Eddie, tears streaming down her face. We did it. Yeah, we did. She threw her arms around him and Eddie held her, feeling her shake with relief and fear and something that might have been joy. Behind them, Tommy cleared his throat. Hate to break up the moment, but the detective wants statements from both of you. Eddie pulled back. Right, okay. The next 3 hours were a blur. Statements at the police station. Questions about how Eddie and Maggie met, why he'd agreed to help her, what Webb had said. Eddie told them everything except the part about pretending to be her grandson. That felt too personal, too private. The detective, whose name was Martinez, seemed satisfied. We've got enough to put Webb away for a long time, and his associates. You did the right thing, Mrs. Davis. Not many people would have had the courage. I didn't have courage, Maggie said. I had Eddie. Martinez looked at Eddie with something that might have been respect. You're a good man, Mr. Callahan. Eddie almost laughed. I'm really not. Maybe not in your past, but what you did the last 2 days, that takes character. After they were done, Tommy drove them back to the garage where the bikes were. Mike, Danny, and Cisco were waiting. We heard, Mike said. Nice work. Wasn't me, Eddie said. Was Tommy's idea to call the cops. Tommy shrugged. Someone had to be the smart one. They all laughed, the tension breaking like glass. Maggie looked at all of them. Thank you, all of you. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. You already did, Tommy said. You gave Eddie a reason to stop running from everything. That's payment enough. Eddie felt his throat tighten. All right, enough with the emotions. Let's get Maggie back to. He stopped. The nursing home wasn't safe. Not anymore. She can stay at my place, Tommy offered. Guest room's clean, and my wife makes a mean pot roast. I couldn't impose. You're not imposing. You're family now. Eddie said so himself. Maggie looked at Eddie. He nodded. Okay, she said softly. Thank you. They drove to Tommy's house in convoy bikes, surrounding the van, making sure nobody followed. Tommy's wife, Rosa, met them at the door. You must be Maggie, she said, pulling the old woman into a gentle hug. Tommy told me everything. You're safe here. Maggie started crying, not from fear this time, from relief. Eddie watched Rosa lead her inside, watched Tommy follow. Cisco clapped him on the shoulder. You did good, brother. We all did. Yeah, but you started it. You're the one who said yes when she asked for help. Eddie thought about that, about the moment 2 days ago when he could have walked away. Should have walked away. Best decision I ever made, he said quietly. That night, Eddie sat on Tommy's back porch, nursing a beer and trying to process everything that had happened. The door opened. Maggie came out wrapped in a borrowed robe. Can't sleep, Eddie asked. Too much adrenaline. You? Same. She sat down beside him. They were quiet for a while. I talked to Lisa, Maggie said finally. My ex-daughter-in-law. She called my son, told him everything. He's flying in tomorrow. That's good, right? I don't know. We haven't spoken in 6 years. I don't know if, she stopped. What if he hates me? He won't. You don't know that. No, but I know that if he has half a brain, he'll realize what an idiot he's been. And if he doesn't, then that's his loss. Maggie smiled sadly. You always know what to say. That's a lie, and we both know it. She laughed. Then she took his hand. What happens now? With us. Eddie had been thinking about that all day. I don't know. I mean, you're going back to the nursing home eventually, right? Maybe, or maybe I'll find somewhere else. Somewhere, she hesitated. Somewhere with better security and better food. Smart. But wherever I go, I want you to visit. If you want to. Want to, Maggie? Eddie stopped searching for words. Your family, real family. I'm going to visit whether you want me to or not. Good, she squeezed his hand. Because I meant what I said earlier, about choosing you. If I could pick anyone to be my family, it would be you. Eddie felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been locked up for 40 years. Same here, he managed. They sat like that, holding hands, watching the stars come out over Tommy's backyard. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Eddie Callahan felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Maggie's son arrived at 11 the next morning. Eddie was in the kitchen when he heard the doorbell. Heard Rosa answer it, heard a man's voice say, "I'm looking for my mother, Margaret Davis." Eddie moved to the doorway, saw a man in his late 50s expensive suit, wrinkled from travel, eyes that looked exactly like Maggie's. David Davis stood in the entryway like he wasn't sure he belonged there. "She's in the living room," Rosa said gently. "But maybe you should know she's been through a lot. Please be kind." But David's jaw tightened. "I'm her son. Of course I'll be kind." Eddie stepped forward. "You sure about that? Because 6 years is a long time to punish someone for something that wasn't her fault." David's eyes snapped to Eddie. "And who the hell are you?" "Eddie Callahan. I'm the guy who's been protecting your mother while you were too busy holding a grudge to pick up the phone." "Eddie?" Maggie's voice cut through the tension. She was standing in the living room doorway, Rosa's arm around her shoulders. "It's okay." "No, it's not." "Eddie, please." He backed off, but he didn't leave. David and Maggie stared at each other across Rosa's living room. 6 years of silence hanging between them like smoke. "You look thin," David said finally. "You look tired," Maggie replied. "I am. I flew all night to get here." "You didn't have to." "Lisa said," David's voice cracked. "She said someone tried to kidnap you, that you almost died, that some biker gang saved your life." "Motorcycle club," Eddie corrected. "There's a difference." David ignored him. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have been here. Should have checked on you. Should have..." His voice broke completely. "I'm so sorry." Maggie took 3 steps forward. Then she was in her son's arms, both of them crying. Eddie felt his chest go tight. This wasn't his moment. This was theirs. He turned to leave. "Wait." Maggie pulled back from David, wiping her eyes. "David, I want you to meet Eddie properly. He's..." She looked at Eddie, something fierce and proud in her eyes. "He's family." David's expression was hard to read. "Lisa told me what happened. How he pretended to be your grandson. How he fought off Webb's men. How he risked everything to keep you safe." "That's right. Then I owe you a debt I can never repay." David crossed to Eddie, held out his hand. "Thank you for being there when I wasn't." Eddie shook it. "Your mom didn't need me. She's tougher than all of us combined." "I'm starting to see that." They talked for hours, David explaining why he'd stayed away, the guilt over his son's death, the anger he couldn't let go of, the shame that had built up until it became a wall he couldn't climb over. Maggie listening, forgiving, crying, laughing. Eddie watching from the corner, feeling like maybe, just maybe, this family could heal. Around 3 in the afternoon, Detective Martinez called. "Mr. Callahan, we need you and Mrs. Davis to come down to the station. There's been a development." Eddie's stomach dropped. "What kind of development?" "Webb's lawyer is claiming that his client was entrapped, that you coerced Mrs. Davis into wearing a wire. He's trying to get the recordings thrown out." "That's bullshit. We didn't coerce anyone." "I know, but we need official statements. Today, if possible." Eddie looked at Maggie. She'd heard enough to know something was wrong. "We'll be there in an hour," he said. The police station was busy, chaotic. Martinez led them to an interview room where a woman in a sharp suit waited the district attorney. "Mrs. Davis, Mr. Callahan, I'm DA Jennifer Park. I understand this has been difficult, but I need to ask you some questions about how the recording was obtained." For the next 2 hours, they went through everything. How Tommy had contacted Lisa. How Lisa had called the police. How the wire had been placed with Maggie's full consent. How nothing had been coerced or forced. "Webb's lawyer is arguing that you were under duress," Park said to Maggie. "That you only agreed to the wire because you were afraid of what Mr. Callahan might do if you refused." Maggie's face went hard. "That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." "Can you prove it?" "I can tell you the truth. Eddie Callahan saved my life. Multiple times. He had no reason to help me except basic human decency. And if that lawyer is trying to twist that into something dirty, then he's as bad as his client. Park smiled slightly. I was hoping you'd say that, because I think a jury will see it the same way. There's going to be a trial, Mr. William, Eddie asked. Almost certainly. Webb's not going to take a plea deal. He's too arrogant for that. Park closed her folder. But I'll be honest with you both. His lawyers are good. They're going to make this ugly. They're going to dig into your past, Mr. Callahan. They're going to question Mrs. Davis's mental state. They're going to suggest this was all a setup. Let them try, Maggie said. I'm not backing down. Good, because I need you strong, both of you. They left the station as the sun was setting. David was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against his rental car. How'd it go? He asked. Could be better, Eddie said. Could be worse. Lisa's at the house making dinner. She wanted to meet you, Mom. Said it's been too long. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. She came. Of course she came. She never stopped caring about you, even after... David stopped. We all made mistakes. Time to start fixing them. Dinner at Tommy's house was loud, crowded, and perfect. Lisa had brought her 2 kids, Maggie's grandchildren, who she hadn't seen in 6 years. The club showed up with beer and stories. Rosa cooked enough food for 20 people. Eddie sat in the corner watching Maggie surrounded by family, real family and chosen family all mixed together. Tommy dropped into the chair beside him. You did a good thing. I didn't do anything except show up. That's all any of us can do. Show up when it matters. Eddie watched Maggie laugh at something one of her grandchildren said. She's going to be okay. Yeah, but what about you? What about me? This thing with Maggie, it changed you. I can see it. Everyone can see it. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Eddie didn't have an answer. 3 weeks later, Webb's trial started. Eddie sat in the courtroom every day watching lawyers argue over evidence and intent and reasonable doubt. Webb's defense team was brutal. They tore into Eddie's past, brought up arrests that had been dismissed, implied that he'd manipulated Maggie for her money. Isn't it true, Mr. Callahan, that you've been arrested 17 times? Webb's lawyer asked. Yes. And isn't it true that none of those arrests resulted in convictions? That's because I didn't do anything wrong. Or because you were good at avoiding consequences. Objection, Park called. Argumentative. Sustained. The lawyer smiled. Mr. Callahan, how long after meeting Mrs. Davis did you learn about her financial situation? A couple days. And when did you decide to help her? The first time I met her. Before you knew about the money. I didn't help her because of money. I helped her because she asked. How convenient. Eddie's hands clenched. He wanted to reach across the stand, and Maggie caught his eye from the gallery, shook her head slightly. Eddie took a breath, let it go. When Maggie took the stand, she was incredible. Strong, clear, unwavering. She told the jury exactly what had happened, exactly why she trusted Eddie, exactly what Webb had done. He threatened my family, she said, looking directly at Webb. He threatened the people who'd shown me more kindness in 2 days than I'd experienced in 6 years. And he did it all for money he had no right to. Mrs. Davis, Webb's lawyer said smoothly, isn't it possible you were confused, that you misunderstood my client's intentions? I'm 83, not senile. I know the difference between help and a threat. But you were under significant stress. You'd been estranged from your family. You were vulnerable. Isn't it possible that Mr. Callahan took advantage of that vulnerability? The only person who took advantage of me was your client. Eddie Callahan gave me my life back. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the foreman stood. We find the defendant, Marcus Webb, guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Eddie felt something break loose in his chest, relief, vindication, exhaustion, all mixed together. Maggie turned in her seat, found his eyes, smiled. They'd won. Webb was sentenced to 12 years. Holt and Chen got 8 each. The fake detective got 5. After sentencing, Park pulled Eddie aside. You should be proud. You saved that woman's life. She saved mine first. How do you figure? She gave me a reason to stop running. Park smiled. Well, whatever the reason, you did good. Both of you. 2 months after the trial, Eddie got a call from Maggie. Can you come to the nursing home? There's something I need to show you. He rode over immediately, found her in her room packing boxes. What's going on? I'm moving, she said, Bought a small house 3 blocks from here. 2 bedrooms, nice yard room for guests. Maggie, that's great. I want you to see it. Help me decide where to put things. They spent the afternoon at her new house, a cozy place with good bones and terrible wallpaper. Maggie had plans to fix it up, make it her own. This room here, she said, showing Eddie a bedroom with windows overlooking the backyard. Thought this could be your room. Eddie stared at her. My room. For when you visit, which I'm hoping will be often. She looked nervous. Unless that's too presumptuous. I know you have your own place, your own life. Maggie. Eddie's throat was tight. Are you asking me to move in? Not full time. I know you need your space, but maybe a few nights a week I make decent coffee, and I could use someone to help with yard work. Eddie looked at this woman who'd become family, who'd given him purpose, who'd shown him what it meant to belong somewhere. Yeah, he said roughly. Yeah, I'd like that. Maggie's face lit up. Really, really, she hugged him tight. Thank you for everything. I should be thanking you. Then we're even. Moving day came 3 weeks later. The whole club showed up to help Tommy, Mike, Danny, Cisco, even Rosa brought homemade tamales. David flew in with Lisa and the kids. It was chaos and noise and family. Eddie stood in the driveway watching everyone carry boxes and argue about furniture placement and felt something he hadn't felt in 40 years. Home. That night after everyone left, Eddie and Maggie sat on the back porch with coffee. Your room's all set up, Maggie said. Rosa helped me make the bed. Put some books on the nightstand that I thought you might like. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. This is your home now too, Eddie. I want you to feel like it. Eddie was quiet for a moment. You know what's funny? What? 3 months ago, I was nobody's family. I had my club, but that's different. I had no one who'd miss me if I disappeared tomorrow. And now, he gestured at the house. Now I've got you. Got David checking in every week. Got Lisa sending me pictures of the grandkids. Got Tommy's wife inviting me to Sunday dinner. You've got a lot of people who care about you. Because of you. No, because you're worth caring about. You just needed to let people see it. Eddie looked at her. I never thanked you properly. For asking me to help that day. For trusting me. You've thanked me 100 times. I mean really thanking you for giving me a reason to be better than I was. Maggie took his hand. You were always that person, Eddie. You just needed someone to see it. You saw it when I couldn't. That's what family does. They sat in comfortable silence watching stars appear over their shared backyard. The next morning, Eddie woke up in his new room, sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked Maggie's garden. He could hear her moving around in the kitchen, humming something off-key. He got up, pulled on jeans and a t-shirt, padded barefoot down the hallway. Maggie was making pancakes. Terrible pancakes, Eddie could tell by the smoke detector beeping. Need help, he called. No, I've got it. The smoke detector beeped again. Eddie grabbed a towel, waved it under the detector until it stopped. You're burning them. I am not. They're just crispy. They're charcoal, Maggie laughed. Okay, fine. You make breakfast. I'll make coffee. They worked together in easy companionship, the kind that comes from understanding someone deeply. When they sat down to eat Eddie's pancakes, Maggie's coffee, it felt like they'd been doing this for years instead of just one morning. I talked to David last night, Maggie said. He wants to know if we'll come to Thanksgiving at his place. Yes, your family, Eddie. That means you're invited to family dinners. Eddie's chest went tight. I've never been to a Thanksgiving dinner. Never. Not since I was a kid. The club used to do something, but it was usually just beer and takeout. Well, this year you're coming to a real one. Turkey stuffing, the whole thing. She paused. If you want to. Yeah, Eddie said. Yeah, I want to. Thanksgiving came with David's house full of people, Lisa's parents, some of David's friends' neighbors. Eddie felt out of place at first, the only one in a leather vest among business casual and sweaters. But then David introduced him. Everyone, this is Eddie. He's the man who saved my mother's life. He's family. And just like that, Eddie belonged. After dinner, while everyone was watching football in the living room, Eddie stepped outside for air. Found Maggie on the porch wrapped in a blanket. Too much noise, he asked. Just needed a minute. She smiled. You having fun? More than I expected. David's friends like you. Lisa's dad wants to talk motorcycles with you later. Yeah, I noticed. Maggie was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? Anything. When I first asked you to pretend to be my grandson, I never imagined it would lead to this. To real family. To actually having someone who cares if I wake up in the morning. I care, Eddie said quietly. I know. That's what makes it real. She looked at him. I used to think family was about blood, about who you were born to. But you taught me it's about who shows up, who stays, who fights for you even when they have no reason to. You taught me that too. Then we taught each other. She took his hand. I love you, Eddie Callahan. Not like a grandson, like real family. Eddie felt tears burn his eyes. I love you too, Maggie. More than I knew I could love anyone. They stood like that, watching the sunset paint the sky, two people who'd found each other by accident and become family by choice. 6 months later, Eddie was installing a new fence in Maggie's backyard when his phone rang. Detective Martinez. Eddie, we've got a situation. Eddie's blood went cold. What kind of situation? Webb's out on appeal. Technicality, something about jury selection. He posted bail 2 hours ago. Eddie's hands clenched on the phone. Is he? We have eyes on him. He's not going near Mrs. Davis, but I wanted you to know, in case he tries something. Eddie hung up immediately, called Tommy. Get the guys. We're going to Maggie's, now. 20 minutes later, 6 Harleys pulled up to the house. Eddie explained the situation. We take shifts, Tommy said. Round the clock. Nobody gets to Maggie without going through us first. Agreed. They set up a rotation. Eddie took first watch sitting on Maggie's porch with coffee and a very clear view of the street. Maggie came out around midnight. You should sleep. I'm fine. Eddie, I'm not letting him near you, not again. She sat down beside him. He won't come. He's too smart for that. Maybe, but I'm not taking chances. They sat in silence for a while. You know what I realized, Maggie said finally. What? Webb already lost. He went after my money, but he didn't get it. He went after my freedom, but I'm still here. He tried to destroy me, and instead I ended up with more family than I've had in years. She looked at Eddie. He failed at everything that mattered. Doesn't mean he won't try again. Let him try. I'm not scared anymore. You should be. Guys like Webb don't give up. Neither do guys like you. Eddie almost smiled. Fair point. Webb never came. 3 days later, he was arrested again. Turned out he'd violated bail conditions by contacting one of the witnesses. The appeal was denied. He went back to prison to serve out his full sentence. Eddie got the call while he was having breakfast with Maggie. It's over, Martinez said. For real this time. Webb's done. Eddie closed his eyes. Thank you. After he hung up, Maggie looked at him. What did they say? Webb's back in prison, it's over. Maggie's hands started shaking. Really over. Really over. She started crying. Eddie moved around the table, pulled her into his arms, held her while she shook with relief and exhaustion and everything she'd been holding in. We're safe, she whispered. We're really safe. Yeah, we are. That evening, the club threw a party at the clubhouse, celebrating justice, celebrating family, celebrating the fact that they'd all made it through intact. Eddie stood at the edge of it all, watching his brothers laugh and drink, watching Maggie charm everyone with stories, watching two worlds that should never have mixed blend together perfectly. Tommy appeared beside him. You look happy. I am. Good, you deserve it. I don't know about that. I do. You spent 40 years running from anything that might matter, and then you stopped running. That takes guts. Eddie thought about the man he'd been 3 months ago. Solitary, closed off, afraid of connection. She changed everything, he said quietly. No, you did. She just gave you a reason. That night, driving home to Maggie's house, his house now, Eddie felt something settle in his chest. Something that had been restless and angry for as long as he could remember. Peace. He pulled into the driveway, killed the engine, sat for a moment in the silence. Maggie's porch light was on. She left it on for him, like she always did. Eddie walked inside, called out, I'm home. In the kitchen, Maggie's voice. I made cookies. Well, I attempted cookies. Come tell me if they're edible. Eddie smiled, hung up his jacket, walked toward the kitchen, toward family, toward home, toward the life he'd never known he wanted until an 83-year-old woman whispered 4 words that changed everything. Pretend to be my grandson, Eddie had pretended. And then it became real. That was the thing about family, Eddie realized. Sometimes it found you in the strangest ways. Sometimes it came from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it started with a lie that turned into the truest thing you'd ever known. Maggie looked up as he entered the kitchen, flower on her cheeks, smile on her face. Well, she asked, are they terrible? Eddie picked up a cookie, took a bite. It was terrible. They're perfect, he said, because they were. Not because of how they tasted, but because of who made them. Because of where he was standing. Because of the life he'd built from a single moment of saying yes instead of walking away. Eddie Callahan had spent 63 years belonging to nothing and no one. And now he belonged somewhere. He belonged with her. He belonged here. And that was everything.